I have always wanted to be a nurse from early age. I can remember maybe back when I was 3 years old. I started asking my mom for nursing kits and doctors' kits. And I've always been really interested in just helping people. I feel like I'm a nurturer. So the other reason why I went into nursing, I had an older sister who was a nurse, and I used to like to see her in all of her white, and she just looked so pretty. And I thought that that would be something interesting for me to do. I've never known any other career that I was interested in other than nursing. So I can just say all of my life, that's what I wanted to be.
Well, when I came up, there were only about two professions that a black could go in. It was either teaching or nursing. And to be honest, I chose nursing because it was 3 years instead of 4.
My mother was a licensed practical nurse, and I think the whole atmosphere of caring was a part of our lives. And from early childhood, I always thought that I wanted to help people. Sometimes I would go to the hospital with her and wash patients' hair and that sort of thing. So it was always something that was in my spirit that I wanted to do.
I chose to go into nursing because I had an older sister and everybody thought we were twins. We went through high school together. We graduated together, and she wanted to be a teacher and I didn't want to be nothing she wanted to be.
As a child, I often visited the sick with my mother, and it was done so frequently until I found myself helping her to care for the people that we would visit, and I just developed an interest in nursing.
Originally I was thinking about medicine, and I started at Bethune-Cookman pre-med, but it got difficult with the money end. It was difficult to buy books. And while I was there, I was oriented to take the entrance exam at Jacksonville Hospital. They had lost their accreditation, so it was suggested that I come to Grady. It was supposed to be the top nursing school in the Southeast. And this was 1951.
I decided sort of in my senior year, I was looking for some area to go into to further my education. I grew up in the Atlanta area. I didn't have money for college or any further schooling, so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I did work while I was in high school at Piedmont Hospital in the kitchen and took trays up to the floor and saw the nurses on the areas there, so that sort of influenced me. And my homeroom teacher told me about the test at Grady that we could go take to see if we could get into the School of Nursing. And so that's when I decided I'd go take the test and see if I could become a nurse.
Well, when I was 6 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a nurse. And I had an aunt who graduated from this school in 1959. And when I came to her graduation and saw how beautiful she looked in that white, it was solidified, yes, I'm gonna be a nurse. Because as a child, I always felt like I wanted to help people and to just be of service to someone. I care for the sick, my mother, and I enjoy nursing.
I heard about nursing over the radio, and they were interviewing people to be practical nurses in Cleveland, Ohio. And it just dawned on me that that would be something after graduating from high school that I could possibly be a nurse and go to practical nursing school when I graduated.
I decided to go into nursing because I wanted to not end up being a domestic servant. And the school nurse told me about nursing. So.
My mother encouraged me to go to nursing school, and I received a scholarship.
My mother is a registered nurse, and she was also like the nurse for the neighborhood, and I would go with her when she was checking on people and checking their blood sugar and giving insulin and doing different things. So I learned at a very early age that that was something I wanted to do.
Well, I chose to go into the field of nursing because even as a young child, I used to take care of little animals that we might find, little rabbits, little different kinds of, how should I say, less fortunate as far as health-wise. And then I had a person down the street, a nurse down the street from me who was a nurse at Huntsville Hospital, and she kind of encouraged me too. And my older sister went to be a nurse, but she went to another program. So I ended up at Grady.
Well, I wanted to be a doctor. And after I found out it cost so much to be a doctor and there were no scholarships like we have today, so I had a teacher who had two sisters who had gone to Grady. She was my algebra teacher and my basketball coach. So she said, if you go to Grady, you can become a nurse, then you can do anything else you want to do.
Well, it started when I was around 10 years old. My grandmother came down with breast cancer, and so I was assigned to help her with daily cares and to stay with her and to help dress her wound. And so that's how I got interested in nursing and caring for women.
I don't know. I grew up with a neighbor that had polio that I'd say sat with her a lot, needed a lot of care. I was a Girl Scout. We did blood draws, and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. She wasn't ill, but it was just that I guess I was always in a caregiving mood. So I needed to be able to take care of myself. And at that time, teaching and nursing were the things that most of us did. So I decided to be a nurse.
Well, I kept whittling down choices. I started off wanting to be a secretary, a librarian, dietitian, and then I ran into my mother's friend who was a nurse. And I saw a wonderful nurse at the hospital where I worked as a teenager. And I talked with her, and they said, oh, it's a good choice, because I love science. So then I found out that Grady would only cost $300 for the whole 3 years. My brother was already at Talladega. My baby brother would be going to Knoxville 2 years after I got to Grady. So I figured if I got my BS later, I could do that with the money I would earn as a registered nurse.
I chose to go into nursing because that was the only thing that was available for me at that time and that I could afford. And I had a young child that was almost 2 years old, and I had to make a living for her and for myself. And the Lord led me in this direction.
In the 1960s, I had two choices, to be a nurse or educator. I always wanted to be a nurse.
I chose Grady because of my sister, my oldest sister, next to the oldest, attended Grady back in 1954.
What was your sister's name?
Her name was Helen Ager, and she graduated from Grady, and she worked as a nurse in New York. She moved to Jersey, and she was a school nurse in Jersey until she passed. We lost her last year in August, but she was a Grady school nurse and loved it. And when she came to Grady, that was my opportunity to come as well. Also, cost was a factor. It was not very expensive to go to Grady, and my mom had 7 children, and I was next to the youngest, and we had lost our father when I was a senior. So this was an opportunity for her to be able to send me where I wanted to go and not have to pay that much money for me to attend.
Well, in my high school, my challenge really was to pass the test. It was known as the best school in the Southeast. And I had classmates at Johnson, where I went to high school. The 61 class and the 62 class, they had people to take the test and nobody passed it. So I was interested in technically just passing the test to see if I could pass the test. And when I did, I said, oh, well, I'll go, you know. And it was inexpensive. After I passed the test, really, I was really in the civil rights movement, and they tried to get me to integrate St. Joseph's Hospital in Savannah. I'm from Savannah. However, I decided, no, let me get this over with, and I went on to Grady.
I actually wanted to attend Tuskegee, and Tuskegee had offered me a scholarship, but it wasn't a full scholarship. I had two older brothers who were in college, and I had to think of the economy, of the price. So this young lady from my school took the test. She could not pass the test. So the hospital where my mother actually worked said, well, if she can pass the test, we'll pay, you know, to send her to school. I was actually the first black registered nurse at that hospital after I had completed school. I came, I took the test, I passed, and the rest is history.
And which hospital was that?
Lawrence Memorial Hospital in Dublin, Georgia.
In Dublin, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from high school in 1956 and entered nursing school. I stayed there a couple of years, got married, returned to nursing school later, and finished in 1962 from Homer G. Phillips in St. Louis, Missouri.
I chose the Grady program because I had gone to nursing school at Dillard University. I'm from New Orleans, and my dad suffered a stroke, and I was not able to financially afford to go back to Dillard University. And being from Louisiana, I called several different schools in Mississippi and Alabama, and no one was accepting black students. So I ended up at Grady after someone told me that they had a program which included African American students.
Well, it was different, and I was scared to death. I didn't speak English, and I had to deal with, my class was integrated. There were a few whites that sat in the front of the class, and I sat right behind them because my English was not adequate. And so I had, you know, disparity within the blacks and the whites. So I was kind of in the middle. So I really, really had to kind of, you know, center myself and concentrate on what the reason for my being here, which was to get an education.
My first experience, I was just happy to be there. It was my first time away from home. I am from the Atlanta area, so I was still at home, but away from home at the same time. But I was just happy to be there in the school.
Well, originally I applied at Grady in Georgia State, and I said, whoever answers first, that's where I'm going to go. So I got accepted at Grady first, and that's how I ended up at Grady. And I'm glad that Grady answered first, because the experience that I got at Grady, I would have never gotten that experience at Georgia State.
There were two young ladies that had graduated from Grady Nursing School. My home girls, Maggie Shepard and Jackie Hall Cannon. And they told my mother about the program. I interviewed and was accepted.
Because after working as a practical nurse, I was able to earn enough money to go to Grady Memorial Hospital School of Nursing for only $300 for the 3 years.
I chose Grady program because of Miss Olga Jones, Grady graduate. She was the school nurse at Archer High School, and she got me interested in applying. So I applied to Grady and I applied to Tuskegee, but Grady gave me a scholarship for $1,200 for the 3 years, and that's how I ended up at Grady.
I had two choices, the Albert Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia and Grady Memorial Hospital. My mom encouraged me to go to the closer School of Nursing.
I chose Grady because my mother was a Grady graduate, and she finished in 1942, and she spoke very highly of Grady all the time, so I definitely wanted to follow her endeavors there.
So you were second generation Grady?
I'm a second generation Grady graduate, yes.
Tell us your mother's name.
My mother's name then was Mabel Hudson, and she married, and she's Mabel Hudson Knuckles. And I might add that she was among the first group of colored nurses accepted in the United States Army.
Well, I chose Grady because of another person who was a friend of my oldest sister who had gone to Grady. And she was very excited about it. And then, like I say, the nurse that was down the street from me, lived down the street from me. And she was a very effective nurse at the Huntsville Hospital. And I got a scholarship for 1/3 of my tuition from a sorority at Alabama A&M, which was like a stone throw from where we lived. And I had worked as a babysitter through the summer, trying to save up money to pay part of my tuition. I paid 1/3 of the tuition, and then my dad reluctantly gave me the other third because they wanted me to go to Alabama A&M. So anyway, that's about the size of it.
I chose Grady because of my teacher. She said she had two sisters who were Grady students at the time, and I chose Grady because of that.
I chose the Grady program because I was living in Fairfield, Alabama, and the closest hospital where I could get nursing was Grady School of Nursing. So I went to Columbus, took the test, passed the test, and my mother, who was a widower at that time, and my two sisters who were twins, they got the money together for me to go to Grady School of Nursing. And that's why I chose it. And my sister was living in Atlanta, teaching school at the Atlanta public school system. And so that was another reason I chose Atlanta to do my nursing career. And I had a cousin, Dr. John Boykin, who was also living here. So I had a way to get back and forth from Birmingham to Atlanta whenever I needed to see my family. I was accepted at Tuskegee Institute and at Grady. I came to Grady because it was $300 for the whole 3 years, and we only had to pay $150 at the beginning, and then you pay the rest of it later on. And my parents had an educational policy that was worth that amount, so that paid for my education.
I don't know, it's just hard to say. The first experience was the day that we went for pre-testing. Well, that's not in the program, but we were interviewed by the psychologist, and he got into something, and I had to let him straight, not directly. But my first experience, I guess just walking onto the floor, I didn't know what to expect because we didn't have TV, the program was about nursing and doctors, so just amusement and curiosity, and I guess I didn't perceive the patients as being very sick, so it was a pleasant day, a very new learning experience, yeah. I guess I've always been adventurous and nosy, so.
I chose Grady because it was close to where I lived. I lived in College Park, and I could get to and from Grady easily. And if anything should happen, God forbid, to my daughter, that I could get to College Park, which was 9 miles away.
because it was one of 3 black nursing schools that I knew of. I didn't really realize as a teenager that I could not go to a nursing school in Savannah, Georgia, where I'm from. I just automatically assumed it was a Catholic institution and I went to parochial school that I was going to just walk right in their doors and be accepted. Well, I found out that wasn't so. So I had to apply to, I think, FAMU and Grady were the only 2 in the southeast region that I knew of. And I chose Grady because it was the most economical of the 2.